Hi everyone, I'm here again today for Designers for Lunch. Today I have the pleasure to present an award-winning design studio based in Toronto that is called Stacklab, and I think this is one of that brands that really catch you, not just because of the design of the projects of the objects, but also for the way they work, for the process they realize that their projects. So today we have with us Jeffrey Forrest, that is the founder of the studio, and he's going to be live with us right now. Hi, Jeffrey.
Hi, Gabriele. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Hi. Yeah, for you it's early morning. Thank you for being with us, even if it's so early there. And like, I'm really happy to have you here. We've been talking the last few days. I mean, you are the designer that I didn't meet in person, between the ones I've been interviewing, let's say, in these days. But it was a pleasure to meet with you, even by phone, by talking with you with messages, because it's like, I think you have a really nice approach, not just to design, but also to life in general. Like, this is what I got from the few conversations we had. So I just want to ask you if you want to introduce yourself, introduce your brand, and talk a little bit about you.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's worth noting what you guys have built in such a short period of time. It's important, coming off of COVID and having an opportunity to exhibit work and tell the world what we do. It's really
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you very much.
So yeah, my company's called Stacklab. I founded it in 2014. And really, my background is in architecture. That's my education. But the studio really emerged out of an industrial design process. Out of school, I motorcycled to Toronto from out west, where I'm from in Canada, and immediately just wanted to break from the computer screen and from building and thinking at that scale. And so I started working in furniture, and immediately started sort of applying architectural principles to furniture making. And I think what that fundamentally means is basically injecting big sort of social and cultural and economic and programmatic thinking into object making and into the environment. And so the work became quite conceptual, I guess, and as a result, over time, we started to really develop this collaborative model, because the truth is, despite being educated as an architect, I'm not really an expert in anything. I'm a generalist, and so I think my skill is building teams and in critical thinking and engaging people in a critical thinking dialogue. And so over time, our model has really evolved into this collaborative effort where we engage primarily regional experts in craft and social and applied sciences in a design discourse, and we develop products and projects starting there, and that's really the fundamental background of my business.
Actually, you don't develop only design pieces. Like, you also work with architecture and interior design, because there are these two sections of your studio, right?
Yeah.
Because like, one is object, one is project.
You got it.
And so you actually do everything. So that might be interesting. Like, you're not just focused on one thing. So it's stimulating, like, to work in different projects every time, that are not just design pieces, but are also much bigger projects, right?
Well, it's funny. My friends always ask me, they're like, "How does that work as a business? Because you do too much." And it might even seem that way. And even looking within the body of work we have in each category, an object or project, the work is seemingly very sort of frenetic. It's very different, and there's no established aesthetic or sort of brand or theme. And but the truth is, it's all very logical, and it follows a very logical sequence. And that's largely based on the way we collaborate and the way we engage our partners. Every time we start a project, we'll learn something new, and that ends up feeding into another field of inquiry, and so on and so forth.
It's true.
And really, whether we're building an installation or a sculpture or a home or a chair, we follow the same logic. It starts with a with a field of inquiry, a curiosity about an issue, sometimes many issues, and really they're economic, they're historic, they're manufacturing based, and then we design as a collective, and then output. And we have no bias with respect to material or approach. Every project is different, but we follow the same logic each time.
It's interesting because in the end, like about project management, no, it's the same even in different fields. Like I can see it also for us when we organize an event, like or when we have this kind of project. Like you learn a lot for what you've been doing before, and then that gives you other ideas to move further and to create more. Like the same we can say for the platform we have just launched. Like it's something that maybe 1 year ago we would not imagine to do, but according to the situation, to our experience, to also the pandemic that we are still living, like it just came out to our mind, and we say, okay, let's do it. Like, so I think that's really the best part of doing what we do. I wanted to ask you something about the collaborations you have, because this is really interesting. Like you work a lot with experts in craft and science. How does that work? Like, I mean, how do you find your partners, and what do you look for when you look for a partner?
Well, it depends on whether it's a speculative project or a client-driven project. So, for example, if it's a client-driven project, often they'll have a brief, and you know, that will in some way inform who we want to talk to based on the program or the scale or things like that. If it's or our material response, if it's an object or if it's speculative, typically we do a lot of research. We work with regional partners. We're always going around and introducing ourselves and learning about what people do. And rather than approach somebody with an idea, oftentimes we'll approach people and we'll develop idea, or we'll understand kind of where the gaps are, or where they have problems in their industry, and then we'll design around that. So, for example, our Cube series, which we're relaunching as part of Isola as well, it started because we started making castings in our furnishings, and when I was in a foundry, I realized that they had a big problem with stored decommissioned patterns, which are the original positives that they make molds from, and they had tons of these things, and they were beautiful, hand carved, historic in some cases, and they didn't know what to do with them. They were just eating up real estate. And that really, that really triggered something in me, and really ended up taking me on a trajectory that eventually led to the Felt series, believe it or not. It's just this idea that a lot of companies out there that manufacture collect a lot of waste, and somebody needs to be making productive use out of them. And so in the case of the cubes and later in other projects, we'll identify this problem. We'll come up with solutions together on how to reintegrate these materials productively back into society, and ideally at scale, so they don't just become kind of like DIY, fun, cute little design projects, but actually turn into something that could be, sold as true product.
That's true. Like, and I really like this approach. That is actually the same you had for the collection you're presenting on our platform, Felt Collection. How did this idea came out, and how the project, the collection itself, evolved in time? Can you talk a little bit about us? Can you talk a little bit to us about this project?
Absolutely. It was so perfect, actually. We had been coming off of this trajectory of reuse in a number of projects, and I think just because we were sort of aware of that, and it was becoming part of our brand, we just kind of stumbled across, probably intentionally stumbled across, an online database that a New York-based felt manufacturer had published online of offcuts, and we were like, it's perfect, because all of a sudden we can tap into the exact dimensions of this stored database of material. And so one of my colleagues, James, developed a very simple script that allowed us to basically pull sheets of material right out of the database that gave us a productive cutting yield for a specification. And so that was the origin of it. And the idea was that if somebody ordered a bench, let's say, that was, 30 inches by 12 inches, we would select material that gave us a good cutting yield for that size, and the material would be random. You could get pink, blue, purple, yellow, whatever, sort of Smith, color scheme. And it was just so much fun. And so that's kind of how that started. And then we got, into productizing it, and people definitely have color palettes that they want to observe in their homes, and for their clients. And so we started partnering with this group to see what other colors they had in sort of larger stock. So we started working with end of bolt material, which is basically the end of the roll that often doesn't get used, and that opened up a whole new world. And so all of a sudden we were able to offer efficient environmentally friendly solutions that actually met a color scheme. And that we started to evolve it from small furnishings to larger things. Now we're exhibiting our chair and our throne on the virtual exhibition as well. And going forward, we're now actually discussing a true partnership with this company to take it a step further, and that's the development of an online configurator that is going to be an app that people
cool.
use. And I can't say too much about it, but it's going to be very, very
cool. That I want to know. I want to see it. Like I hope we can introduce it and launch it on our platform as well when it will be online, this application, because I think it's really interesting that people can customize. I think today people really want to have unique pieces, so customization of products is really important, and applied in this way, I think it's really, really interesting. But I mean, so there is also technology in the work you do, you work a lot with technology, but this production method can be also applied on other materials. Are you working for applying it on other materials?
Well, in theory, everything that we've done up until the felt series has kind of use the same logic, right? We're identifying stockpiles of material, very much like Maricondo. We're trying to take that material, move it out of warehouses, and turn it into something that can be used productively. And so we've already sort of exhibited different ways of taking material and putting it out into the world. And the felt is but one iteration of that. The particular language of taking sheet material and getting good cutting yield and stacking it, of course, can be applied to any material that comes in sheet sizes. You imagine, as controversial as it may be, leather or even vegan leather or fabric of any kind. That's all totally fair game. And I think if we're really smart, particularly with this configurator and developing partnerships with other companies, we might be able to be the guys who go to, I don't know, like H&M, for example, and say, how much stuff do you guys have in inventory, in your warehouse? And how can we turn that into something that actually, does some good and also makes some money,
Yeah, that's not bad, actually. But how actually technology, again, according to you, can be used in design? What do you think are the possibilities that technology improves the production process, or even the algorithms? How can they work in the design field? How can they help designers in developing their projects?
Well, in so many ways. So to start in the concepting stage, I think using digital tools to rapidly iterate is key. So parametric design and sort of algorithmic based design allows you to arrive at sort of schematic and early design development solutions that are quite optimized, because you've gone through a whole host of iterations early on in the process. And then once you actually get into fine tuning and developing the idea that you want to move forward with, you can prototype almost exclusively in digital space. For our wishbone casting, for example, one of our signature castings for a table, we did all of the prototyping in digital space using finite element analysis. So we came up with our own rules for what constituted good performance, and we used digital tools to test geometries ever so slightly to make sure that what we finally put out into the world was optimized. It was fine-tuned. If it was any bigger, it would be extraneous. If it was any smaller, it wouldn't perform. And so that means that we can iterate quickly, B, make sure that what we do produce is really quite optimized, and C, in the process of prototyping, not produce any waste other than clicking on the keyboard, right? And that's really valuable from a sustainability standpoint too, right?
I see that actually you also have many projects, many papers, many notes on your back. So you are you're a future oriented designer. You're a future oriented I think brand. Like, what are your next projects? What are you working on? What are about all that images and notes you have on your back? I'm curious.
I can take you on a little tour in a moment, but in principle, we're really okay. Well, it's kind of a two-part question. Because of COVID, we've kind of pumped the brakes a little bit on development and focusing a little bit more on how we get our message out into the world. And so, Isola, augmented reality, for example, have been really great tools to engage people in their homes with what we do, period. So that's something we've been focusing on in the short term. In the longer term, once we get back into production and into development, we're definitely focusing on the Felt 2.0 that I was telling you about. We're going to be launching a variant of our Ash series, which is a really cool project that again has kind of followed that trajectory of reclamation and reuse. And we have some speculative big projects as well that deal with some pretty exciting subjects. One of them actually deals with basically planetoids and astronomy. And so there's lots happening. I hope to be talking about it in earnest and showing some real work product in 6 months once we get past this awful pandemic.
I hope that too, and I hope we can also work together. The next steps can be in physical events. Like we're going to be at Dutch Design Week. There will be Milan Design Week next year. So I hope to meet you in person and talk about your projects face to face. Because I mean I like we launched a digital platform, but I still like the to meet people in person, like to have this approach, and have a coffee or have a lunch together, and talk about the future of design. What are the possibilities? You didn't answer me about what you have on your back.
Okay, yeah.
So show me something about it.
Yeah, I'll take you on a little tour. And on that note, I feel like we're all in desperate need of a hug, aren't we? We're we've been stuck at. Okay, so here I'll take you on a little tour. So here, this is a diagram actually that captures the sort of method with which we identify offcut pieces of felt, organize them, and then turn them into a useful specimen.
Okay. This is really interesting for the users because they understand the logic of the felt collection as well.
Exactly, and the goal with this in the new series is to take it a step further and not only consider. Imagine you're balancing constraints around what the material can be cut into various programs, but also you have to support it with a substructure. And we're talking with a partner dealing with aluminum extrusions, and there's limitations of what you can do there too. So this program is going to be simultaneously organizing information around sheet material and extruded material to optimize it and put out product. So it's a pretty complex algorithm. It's going to be very exciting. Let me see what else. Here, this is a piece that we actually have on exhibit. This is a variant of our cube series, which I was talking about earlier. These are the cubes here, by the way.
Cool.
These are made using a historic pump pattern. So what we do is we actually have a diagram here that shows. I don't know if you can, no, it's too light. What we do is we section them, these historic patterns, and then we use them as formwork elements. And we use there's a materials engineer that we work with who has this really interesting elastic concrete, and she helped us skin a foam core with this elastic concrete. It's only 10 millimeters thick. And so it means that we can make these big, like concrete cementitious looking sculptures with a material that's actually quite lightweight. So they can get into elevators, into condos and apartments rather than in cranes, and so that's a really
amazing.
Yeah. And so this
a cool project.
This exhibition here was exploring that idea at a much bigger and that's something that we have on the Isola project database as well. And then lastly, I want to show you this project here, which I hope you can see. This is also on the project database for Isola. This is a really cool one, and kind of takes our ethos to the spatial realm. We've identified in construction. Toronto is a booming city, right? I don't know if you guys are aware of that out there in Milan, but this city is.
I've never been there, but I heard about it.
There are so many cranes and so much construction activity here that the city has really become it's been, the aesthetic of the city is defined by scaffolding and cranes and hoarding materials, and it creates a very temporarily antisocial urban landscape. And so what we've started to explore is how to take those materials while buildings are being built, and instead of making them inward facing and antisocial, turn them out. And so, and make them socially engaging. And so, these projects show using materials like scaffolding and shrink wrap and Tyvek, and make them into spatial environments that people can come in and enjoy. And you can program them with restaurants and, other amenities that actually get people going, sitting, engaging in commerce and that kind of thing. And so that's a big project for us, and it all comes full circle. It's the same idea as the felt. You take material that's readily available, and you kind of optimize it through design and make it useful in a way that people can really appreciate.
Yeah, the logic is the same, as you said. No, it's really, I'm really curious to see what's next from Stacklab, and I hope again we can present the next projects on our platform and as well in physical events. Thank you very much for being with us today, and thank you for supporting us also with your feedbacks on the development of the platform during the last days. We really appreciate what you all guys are doing for us, because I mean we are building a platform for designers, but we want to do it also with designers. So that's really interesting, the way we created a community, in many cases without even seeing each other. Like, this is, I think, the positive consequence of the pandemic we are living. And as you also said before, like we are working on something that probably we wouldn't do in case we had to work on the physical events of Milan Design Week. But in this case, I think there is a future behind it, and I'm happy to work on it with you guys. So thank you again, Jeffrey, and see you soon. And
Gabriele, really, you guys have done us a huge favor by exhibiting our work and engaging in conversation. We love it, and when we develop more, we'll come to you first.
Thank you very much. For us, it was just a pleasure. So thanks to you, and see you soon. Talk to you soon.
Cheers.
Bye bye. Have a nice day.
Bye bye.
Ciao.